Thank you. So we thought the perfect way to close out a conference with the theme you, me, and the machine would be to have a bit of a debate between someone who's more on the you and me side, that would be Matt, and someone who's more on the machine side, which would be Christian. So for some initial context for the debate, let's start with each of you giving just a short overview of your positions on AI. So Matt, you go first, and before you say your position, just quickly tell the audience what Horizon Guides does.
Yeah, so we are a publishing business with a slightly unusual angle. We aggregate lots of niche specialist travel companies onto one platform where we do all of the content creation and audience building that they would normally find quite difficult to do for themselves. One of the cool things that you can do on our platform is you can come and ask a question, anything you like, and you'll get a personalized response from one of our travel writers or a tour operator. So it's a bit like asking ChatGPT a question, except it takes about a day to get your reply. Now, Christian's going to tell us that that's all horribly obsolete and outdated. I think what we found is that the more nuanced position is that there's clearly a big role for AI, generative AI, for all sorts of things. It can do lots of good stuff. But in our world, in tourism, but especially in my little corner of tourism, there's still plenty of stuff that you need people to do. The challenge for lots of businesses is finding out where the balance lies. And especially because I think it's different categories of businesses are going to have different realities when they come to figure out what the adoption should look like. And I think that's probably what we're going to be talking about today.
Indeed. And Christian, same thing, a little bit about Magpie, and then your position, please.
Yeah, I object to being on the side of the robots, but that's the argument I make today because I'm pretty deep into this AI stuff. So Magpie Travel, in effect, we're a channel manager for content in the experiences section. So we manage product content and distribute that to OTAs and Google and other places. So we manage a lot of content and translations and that kind of thing. So it's been kind of a godsend for us, this tool that dropped out of nowhere a couple of years ago, 19 months ago. So I'm sort of surprised in some ways that, for 25 years, Google has organized the world's information for us, and they're absolutely a monopoly on the world's information. And then this tool, which nobody expected, even the people that developed OpenAI's ChatGPT, expected this to happen. And it was overnight. I think most of us probably saw it on the same day. And it's got the world's information now on a single chatbot. And I'm almost amazed that we all walk around like nothing's really changed. We all talk about it constantly. We were acting like it's just the next thing that's happened. But I think this revolutionizes our world. I think this changes everything. And especially the information, I think the humans have put themselves on the pedestal that we are still the experts in this and the experts in that. But I think these LLMs are so powerful. They're much more powerful than just generate the next word. They've got some real intelligence behind them, some real reasoning power. And they're only going to get better. So I think everything changes going forwards.
Mm-hmm. I was careful to try to position you not as fully on the machine side, fully on the human side, because when we talked beforehand, you guys were agreeing a little too much. So I'm going to try to push you to disagree as much as possible. And I want to focus the conversation on the three main phases of travel: planning, booking, and experiencing. I just want to kind of, make clear that you're in pretty different areas of the industry in that, Christian, day tours are sort of low stakes, low ticket items, products. Relatively, there's a lot of information online that AI can draw on about them. So I think that gives AI advantages there. Matt, you deal with kind of tour operators, longer trips, exotic locations. Those trips are higher stakes, they're higher ticket products. And, the information and advice that you might need for those types of trips hasn't necessarily been digitally captured, maybe harder to convey, through AI, through digital channels. So, to me, that's very important in terms of the trust level that's needed for different types of travel, the type of information, et cetera. So Matt, let's go a little bit deeper in your position on kind of humans versus AI when it comes to planning those different types of travel.
Right. So I think probably the best thing I can do is illustrate with an example. One of the questions that one of our users has asked us recently is that they suffer from extreme fear of heights, but they've always wanted to go trekking in Nepal. Is it remotely appropriate for them to go trekking in Nepal? By sheer coincidence, our contributor for Nepal happens to suffer from vertigo. So he's in his reply, he said, I can't even climb a step ladder. But let me tell you this, I understand exactly what your fear is, but let me tell you, when you're trekking in Nepal, you're rarely on cliff edges, you're rarely aware of you're very high in altitude, but you're rarely aware of it. You're going to be fine. Probably avoid this trek, and that trek. Everything else, perfectly fine. For fun, because this is what everyone's doing these days, I put the same question into ChatGPT, and it's very obviously. No one's going to dispute how clever it is, but you've got to understand the limitations. ChatGPT will process that question and understand it to meaning, what are the low-altitude treks? Here's a list of low-altitude treks that you can go and do. It's not at all what the user was asking. Christian's going to say, it'll get better. Before the reasoning, the logic capacity will all get better. The knowledge will increase. And I agree completely with that. But what about my user wanted to hear from someone that has been there, has experienced it, can relate to this fear, empathize with the nature of the question, and give them some very well qualified answers. So I think this is the kind of thing that we're dealing with these sorts of questions and that sort of travel. I think it's going to be a long time. I wouldn't say never, but I think it's going to be a long time before our users, our customers, are happy to be taking that kind of information from robots.
Yeah, you need that human kind of empathy for the situation, for that person's situation. So, Christian, where do you agree or disagree?
It'll get better.
I figured.
And it will, and it won't get twice as good. It'll get 100 times better every year or so, but whatever those numbers are. But everyone likes to do these gotchas, and we've all seen plenty of gotchas where it's usually the travel planning where it's arrange a 3-day itinerary around Sydney, and then all of a sudden someone says it doesn't understand geography. It doesn't understand geography. Gemini does a little bit because Gemini's got maps, but these things, they don't solve all the problems. And I think one of the problems with new technology is a lot of the humans have this assumption that a new tool will solve all of their previous problems in this first iteration, and it's not how any software works. I think because this has solved so many things in one step, people get surprised that it hasn't just solved everything. So yes, it will get better. It's not going to solve everything, though. It's maybe not. There's always going to be an edge case where you could say it's not going to be effective, and I think that's fine. But I think too many people are trying to point out what it's not good at instead of looking at what it can do today and run at full speed with the tools that you have today. And I think that's a problem. And there are people, and I see them on LinkedIn and elsewhere, trying to fight this thing. And resistance is futile, as you all know. It's this stuff's not going to go away. And I just see too many people clinging to the old way of doing things that I think are going to get left behind.
Yeah, but
in business,
surely it's about saying, look at what it is good at and adopt it with both hands, but also look at what it's not good at. And businesses need to be trying to figure out what it's not good at and filling that gap.
Yeah, of course, they need to be aware of what it's not good at, but quit complaining about what it's not good at and run with the stuff that does is the way I look at it. I always think, I'm probably too deep into this stuff now, I always think, what would the AI think? And I was at IPW, I think most of you know what that is, the big US trade show a few weeks ago. And there's 6,000 people all doing 12-minute face-to-face meetings, and I'm thinking, what would the AI think of this? I imagine it watching us, and it's thinking, these humans, what are they? They're all having these little meetings, exchanging information. It's thinking, I could do all of these meetings over 3 days in about 4 seconds, and we'd have the information in the same place at the end of it. And that's the way I look at it. Where are we going with this stuff? And we like to make ourselves feel important, and we are important.
I think like bringing it back to the question, so, or this example that we've got, like most of my advertisers, they don't have great written English, so their tour descriptions are not particularly good. ChatGPT could produce a far better tour description than they can internally by themselves. Absolutely perfect use case for the technology.
Yep.
But then when you get into these thorny, complex questions that are not just about facts, it's not just about recalling facts, but it's about a human connection and an empathy. I don't know, maybe the robots will do that in the future, but
Yeah, that's all speculation, so can only really plan for the short term. But staying at the top of the funnel, kind of in the planning phase, let's talk about how AI is impacting or will potentially impact advertising and discovery, how travelers will find and connect with brands and products in the coming years. So as I touched on in my presentation this morning, AI answers and AI overviews have hit some hurdles, particularly with Google. But assuming those get ironed out, what does it mean for search engine optimization as well as paid advertising when Google's providing the user with a curated answer to their query instead of sending the traffic to all those websites? Either of you.
I'd say for travel, it's interesting. I actually wrote an article on Phocuswright on this. So for Gemini specifically, Google's got access to Google Travel products, right, which are all of our products. So it can quite easily monetize a GenAI result. So we have the one box, which we've all seen now, and you don't see much of that in travel today, but I can have it build an itinerary for Barcelona, and it can grab some Google Travel results for hotels, flights, and things to do within that generative search result. And obviously, therefore, it can monetize them. So I think because Google has travel products already, it can use that same format for monetizing it, and I would expect that to continue. When it gets to voice, it gets more tricky. I'm not sure how they solve that quite with voice. And that voice is coming. I'm convinced of that. We're going to start to do a lot of our searches strictly via voice, and that they're going to have to work that out.
Yeah, I think that'll be the combination of voice and visuals. You'll be talking to your computer, it'll be embedded in the device.
Everyone wants to see a picture of the hotel before they book it, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think, yeah, that you get a combination there, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to search, I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen with search. I think Google doesn't know. I don't think Google needs to know. I think they will figure it out one way or another. And I think where it gets complicated is different business types, different categories are going to need to have very different approaches to what we used to call SEO. I think if you're an operator or a supplier, you're going to want to be as fully integrated with all the LLMs as you can. And we were talking earlier, all of the things, the levers you used to pull for SEO will become about trust signals. So you're just delivering a great product and getting good results and good feedback and good reviews. That's probably going to determine your visibility in an LLM search. Someone like our business at the moment, we've completely blocked all of the LLMs. And that probably won't be permanently. At some point, we're probably going to have to allow at least Gemini to access the content. But until we get a sense of what the trade-off is, so we are putting stuff out there. I think this is the interesting thing, right? SEO and content for search for the last 10 years has been about just, for the most part, regurgitating stuff that already exists, repackaging it, making it another 1,000 words longer, and Google will put you in first place. All right, some of the SEOs are probably going to take issue with that description, but broadly speaking, all of that stuff AI will replace. And good riddance. Like, we didn't need that in the first. That was for content for Google. We can do away with that. Let Google answer those questions at the top of the search results. And Google is already removing a lot of that stuff from the index. It's gone. If we're in a world where we're creating a lot, by orders of magnitude, less content but it's content that deserves to be on the internet, then that's a good thing for users. And I think Google will continue to recognize that people want that. There's always going to be a role for search. And I think Google will, particularly in possibly marginal edge cases of the industry, but the complex stuff where people need nuance and detailed, deep content, I think Google knows that people will continue to want that.
So the best content will be serviced, right? But then Horizon Guides, that's what you do, produce great content. You're pulling up, the drawbridge on your content, at least for now, to sort of protect it until you understand the strategy. But then, if it looks like you're not going to get that downstream traffic as a reward for providing great content that you used to, you're going to keep that content to yourself, maybe. If a lot of publishers of information do that, what does that do to Google? So I just think that's kind of a really interesting scenario to try
that
to
seems pretty dangerous to me. I wouldn't be trying to... I heard anecdotally, I was around when Google started, and people say they stopped Google crawling their sites. I don't remember that at the time, but we didn't have social media at the time, so maybe I wasn't part of those conversations. But I think not having the LLM search your site to crawl, to train on that data is dangerous. And I'd go the other way. I think for businesses, they need to really build out their data. They need to build out their businesses as a single source of truth. So an example being FAQs. Today or last year, we're building FAQs for humans to read. Now you're building FAQs. You could put 1,000 on your website. Forget about the humans reading them. You're talking about the agent reading them or the LLM training on them, and that's your single source of truth for your company or for your products. And that's going to be really important to have that stored where the LLM can see it, because that's going to go to you as a single source of truth, I think, and be on inference. When you're asking questions, it's going to get returned as part of that response, hopefully with links to your website. Maybe not, but hopefully with links to your website. But at least you'll have the right answer and your business and the information they're looking for in that response, which is all Google's trying to do. They're trying to get you the information as quickly as possible. So,
right, but the trade-off used to be you used to allow them access, and in return you got traffic. If that trade-off no longer exists, then people need to read.
I think that could always change. The interface could always change. They may decide to start sending traffic, putting those links in. They're just trying to figure out how to do that at this point. So, I think it's still a possibility. So that's the top of the funnel. Now thinking about kind of moving into the booking phase with autonomous agents on the horizon, which are digital assistants that can not just give you information, but go and do things for you. Where will the line be drawn in terms of how much we'll wind up trusting these agents to do things automatically with little oversight versus what we'll still want to do ourselves, like make that final booking and make sure it's done right?
yeah, for those that know me, I talk about agents all the time. I just love this agent thing. I think everything has to end up with an agent. I don't know where the agent sits. It doesn't really matter because your agent can talk to the next agent. Expedia's got Romy now. Whether you go directly and speak to Romy or not, it doesn't matter because I can have my agent talk to Romy who can then talk to the next agent. So there could be 10 in the middle, but it all ends up with an agent. And I think my agent knows me. If I want to book on always Expedia or I always want to book direct at the hotel, it'll know that or just give me the lowest price. And I think, well, that's personalization to me where my agent knows what I like. Or it's going to always send me a list of 10 hotels to choose from with images. So I think it has to end up at that, but it'll know what I trust. So I either trust this OTA or this hotel brand, or I don't care, give me the cheapest hotel there is. That'd be my personal trust levels that I'll give it.
And I think, again, a lot of this boils down to there's such a variety within this industry. I mean, we're a collection of industries, really. If you're booking, you travel to Barcelona for a work trip, your agent gets it right the first time, you probably let it do it autonomously the second time. I would. But then in the other end of the spectrum, like the people we work with, we lose track of how low the digital adoption and penetration is in great big sections of this industry. If you want to go trekking in Tajikistan, like we had to map these items. Google Maps didn't know that these locations existed. This content isn't there. The LLM doesn't know that it exists. And even if it did, the tour operators doesn't have any capacity to let you book this trek through through your agent. So by all means, you generate an interesting itinerary or something. But I think we're a long way off for lots of the industry, where I think the sort of stuff that we're getting very excited about is still quite a long way away.
Yeah, so it's really hard to say that it'll be able to do everything for you. There'll always be edge cases for sure. Then how about in the experiencing phase of travel? I think it's apparent that the new omnimodal models like GPT-4o and Google's Project Astra have some great uses for tourism. In my presentation this morning, I mentioned Meta's Ray-Ban sunglasses. I think, do you have those on you? So
Yeah,
Christian,
I can.
one of those people, he bought a pair already, and he's walking around. He's not a
Around
glass
talking to
holder.
myself.
And so I think, Google Glass, wasn't the right time 10 years ago, but maybe it is now. So, I think this is interesting because you can walk around with these, and it's probably not great at this yet, but have it act as an AI tour guide. Tell me about what I'm looking at, give me a tour, how should I navigate, answer any question about a destination or most questions, do real-time language translation, with a person or a menu or something. So talk about human versus machine for the in-destination experience, and you're both in tours, so you can talk about how it might affect tour guides or really any part of the industry, though.
So Alex Bainbridge, I'm sure lots of us know Alex. He's talking all the time about you can have your tour guide through your device. I'm sure there's lots of places, if you're going around Paris for half a day, or you're doing a hop-on, hop-off tour in San Francisco, people will go for that quite happily. If you're in a multi-day guided tour, first of all, logistically, I can't see it working. But second of all, that's an integral part of the experience. That's why people travel with Intrepid 10 years every summer in a row, is because they love getting to know these tour guides. They take them to where their family home, and they meet their family, and all the rest of it. That's the hook for the entire experience and memory. So I think, by all means, double down where this stuff makes sense, but don't chuck the baby out of the bathwater and pretend that humans are out of the picture completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. For me, it's all about the end experience. That's why we're in this space, I think most of us. For me, it's all about being on the double-decker bus, if you like, on the Golden Gate Bridge. That's the best day of somebody's holiday, often the best holiday of their life. That's what I'm doing this for. So I hope that the end experience actually isn't affected too much by technology. I hope I still get to sit in the pub just talking to other humans, and that remains so. So for me, the AI is all the bits in the middle, which unfortunately is where we all work, all this stuff in the middle. It's a big part of the industry, all this B2B to B2B, to see at the very end. So, but I think that's where the AI has an impact. So the interesting thing about the Ray-Bans is it's multimodal, clearly, right? So they can speak to me, I can speak to it can see what I'm seeing. So it becomes sort of me. So I'm walking around, having a conversation, it's hearing what I can hear, I can speak to it, it's seeing what I see, so it becomes a version of my brain. I think we'll get to this place where I can have a conversation at the end of the day, what was that place called, and what are we looking at, and it just becomes a sort of version of me. It's got all of my memories. It saw what I saw as I was walking around Barcelona. It took photos all day, or video, potentially the whole day, and made a little video for me, sort of summarized my day. These things are all possible now. And that's not going to stop. This multimodal stuff is not going to stop.
We only have a little time left, but how about a bigger human versus machine question? What will the impact on the workforce be in the longer term? So a lot of people seem to discount what Elon Musk has said. He's kind of gone all the way, said there will come a point where no job is needed. He's not alone in that. George Hinton has been deemed the godfather of AI and has basically said the same thing and just advised people to get a job in plumbing. So what are your predictions and why? Somewhat quickly.
I'll let you go first on that one.
Yeah. So, right after ChatGPT came out, Sam Altman was doing an interview, and he said a couple of things. Somebody asked him what he thinks about, and he said three things. And one was about access to the large language model. Other one was about access to chips, to GPUs. And the third thing he says is, I think capitalism might fail. And he wasn't being funny. He said he thinks this might cause capitalism to fail. Sounds quite dramatic, but I think it's true. And I think we have got a problem with jobs in the future. It might take a little while, but these LLMs are going to be able to do everything, especially when they get multimodal. And one of the things I think a lot about as well is I think we all might struggle. We might lose our value. You know, we've all got careers, most of us in this industry, and I certainly feel this myself. I spent my life earning this, creating this knowledge and learning all about the industry, and that is me. And now all of a sudden, within half a second, this LLM knows everything I know. I'm like, what have I been doing with my life? What am I worth now? And I think it's a deeper discussion we're going to have to find our worth.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I think I spent my career wishing I'd become a computer engineer. I think my son is 5, and I'll probably steer him away from doing that.
Similar, yeah, similar thoughts now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just knowing how to use AI.
Right.
But even that, I don't even know. You know, AI can use itself soon, program itself, so I don't even know what that means. We're over time, but just really quick, one piece of advice you would offer companies on where to focus on AI in their businesses today, or how you're using it today.
How we're using it? Mm-hmm. So I mean, operationally, it theoretically can be quite useful in developing the ideas, the concepts behind your content. But for the most part, it's about looking for the gaps that the LLM doesn't know. So you can interrogate and find out what it does know and what it can tell you. And then if you have domain expertise in whatever that destination or experience is, you can say, well, it's wrong on that, or it's missed something there, and so on. So that's practically something people can do. I think what we're quite interested with our platform is integrating using it. I think we'll get beyond this frothy stage, and it will become something in the background that touches almost everything, but users will be less aware of it. We're at this point now where we're sticking this stuff at the top of every product. And we'll get beyond that. With our platform, I'd like to see if we can use it almost as a smart search function, so a user can tell us what they're looking for, and the AI can give them a set of results that our experts have written, but may be appropriate to what they're searching for. So it's not, I think, generating content for our users is the least interesting thing, but there's lots of other things that you could use it for.
Yeah, Christian?
Yeah, just quickly, I think you have to keep up. You have to keep up with this stuff. You know, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, when you get your first computers, you have to learn how to use a computer. Now you don't think about it. This is many levels above that. You have to keep up with what it is. Unfortunately, I think the more you learn about this AI stuff, the harder it gets to find those gaps. Because I think so many companies are just going to get bulldozed. I think big companies are going to get bulldozed by these LLMs, and they're going to create all these tasks that we used to spend lots of money on, or lots of people, and they just all of a sudden can be done by an LLM. So, but keeping up and look for those gaps and look for those tasks is really important. But if you don't keep up, you're going to get left behind by your competitors or just an LLM. So learn what they're good at, create an AI-first mentality within your company, I think is important.
So it turns out that Matt is using AI in his business, and Christian doesn't want the human hospitality element taken out of the end destination, so they do agree on more than we initially thought, and the future looks like it will be a partnership between man and machine. So thank you, everyone.